Okay, we on? Yeah, we're on. All right. Hey, how's it going, guys? All right, so this may seem a little weird to you guys because it's weird to me. Normally, I film on this tripod, this bad boy right here. I mount my camera up there, but apparently this tripod is not working properly, as you can kind of see and tell. It's just stuck in a certain position. I don't know how it got there, so I'm having very difficulty here. Yeah, I got this at Best Buy. It's Sunpack 4200 XL. There's nothing XL about this, let me tell you that. Anyways, on the show here, this week I'm pretty excited. We're gonna go ahead and do a video on, actually a case, you probably heard of the Amber Guyger case. Because this was in the news, and because the case is wrapping up, I thought, let's just go ahead and do this. Yeah, truth be told, I wasn't actually gonna do this video. I was actually gonna do an analysis, a psychoanalysis on Mr. Franz Kafka's brilliant piece of work, Metamorphosis. Let's get out of the way, bada bing, bada boom. So enjoy. Okay, so let's talk about the Amber Guyger case that's going on right at this very minute. I believe it's almost wrapped up, but for those of you who don't know anything about this case, here's a quick summary. A little over a year ago, on September the 6th, 2018, so you got this one police officer named Amber Guyger. She'd been on the Dallas police force for about 4 years up until then, who was, by the way, involved in a previous shooting. Well, anyways, that night on September the 6th, she parked on the wrong floor of her apartment complex after a 13-hour shift ended and opened the wrong apartment door. She claims that she thought it was her own apartment, thought there was a burglar, got scared, and so she immediately shot and killed a young gentleman, Mr. Botham Jean, who, by the way, was minding his own business. I believe he was in his living room reading a novel or watching TV and eating a hearty bowl of vanilla ice cream. Anyways, she shoots him in claim of self-defense and alleges that she thought she was in her own apartment when it was actually his. She was later fired from the Dallas Police Department later that month, and later that year was officially charged. Now, originally she was charged with manslaughter, but this was upgraded to a murder indictment on November the 30th, 2018. But in regards to what actually happened that day when Mr. Jean was killed, the state claims there was a witness who presented a slightly different account. The witness heard knocking down the hallway, followed by a woman's voice that they believed to be Officer Guyger saying, "Let me in, let me in." Then the witness heard gunshots and heard a man's voice saying, "Oh my God, why did you do that?" The other thing that I forgot to mention is that she claimed that she worked a very long 13-hour shift and that she was very tired. However, earlier that day, she was exchanging sexually explicit text messages and I believe pics with another officer in the force, of whom she was having an affair with. The hours and minutes up until the shooting, she was sexting her Dallas Police Department partner, Officer Martin Rivera. Some of the texts include, "Super horny today," and "Do you want to touch?" Wonderful. Thank you for your service. I'm sure your families are all very proud. And oh, by the way, some of the messages sent were deleted after the shooting. But going back to Amber, she claims that all the floors and the apartment layouts all look the same. However, she's lived there at that specific complex up until 2 months or so from that point. So you would think that she would know her way around by then. Here's a clip of a resident at that complex who contradicts what Amber claims.
The elevator, the garage, the hallways, everything is marked with what floor you're on. So she would have passed plenty of indication to let her know she was on the 4th floor.
Also, the view from the parking garage looks different from what residents say. The door numbers are large and clearly marked. There is a bright red doormat outside his apartment. Red, by the way, out of all the colors on the color spectrum, is the main color that is associated with energy, war, danger, strength, power, determination, passion, desire, and love. It attracts attention more than any other color, at times signifying danger, and if anything, will increase the senses to be more alert, increasing respiration rate, increase in one's pulse, increase in one's blood pressure. There's a reason why emergency vehicles and sirens and fire extinguishers and such are red, to evoke the severity and danger and enhance alert responses more than any other color. Not saying that this is a reason to why Mr. Jean chose his plate mat outside. I don't know, maybe he thought it looked cool, or maybe red was his favorite color. I'm not sure. but I can't think of any other floor mat than a bright red plain mat to set off alarms in anyone's head for them to take notice before entering the apartment. But forget about the mat. Let's pretend it wasn't there. Let's just say that someone stole it and it wasn't on the ground, okay? The fact that his apartment was unlocked, as she claims, and messy and smelled like marijuana, again, as was claimed, shouldn't these be all signs to a cop that had been on the patrol for 4 years up until then to be picked up on easily? Actually, she was the sole woman selected to serve on an elite critical response team of about 10 officers who make high-risk arrests in the division's crime hotspots. So yeah, right there, bam, she's a top cop, okay? And she couldn't even do something that a lost cat can do when he or she recognizes that he or she is at the wrong doorstep? And let me get this straight. So you're saying that you accidentally are in someone else's apartment who you thought was yours. As a top cop, did you forget about what they teach in police academy in terms of being aware of your surroundings? Couldn't you recognize the different setup, the different furniture, the different family photos of a different race? I mean, the TV light was there reflecting, flickering, and glaring, so it wasn't entirely dark as you claim. And why would a burglar be sitting on the couch enjoying a big bowl of Bluebell vanilla ice cream? Shouldn't he or she be quickly rummaging and trying to confiscate and steal the most prized possessions? I mean, clearly a gallon of $5 ice cream at the local H-E-B isn't what most robbers want. And why were you scared? Again, she's been on the force for 4 years now and knows how to handle stressful situations. I mean, who do you think you are? Charlie Chuck from the 1982 Atari video game Food Fight? And were you afraid that Mr. Gene potentially could be hurling ice cream at you? Oh, and why were you playing Jane Cop? Your shift was over! Why were you given verbal commands like you claimed that you did? You're saying that there was a silhouette of a figure who didn't respond to verbal commands? Of course he wouldn't, because he's shocked and he's distraught and he's the one on autopilot, not you. You're basically taking over his defense and trying to nicely apply it to you, as if you were a victim when he was the one who was victimized. It's simple psychological reversal of roles. You're trying to make him as the potential aggressor, and you're the potential victim when this is a classic psychological role reversal. Nice try, it's the other way around. You're aggressing in his own territory, his own personal space, and infringing on his own rights. So, of course he would be shocked, of course he would be in transient distress, and of course he would be not capable of responding to any commands. And he's on that autopilot fight or flight mode that I think you're trying to convey to the jury that you were on, which, by the way, that autopilot 13-hour shift defense that you're claiming that was going through your head, that is complete nonsense. It was more him than you. And besides, Amber, she's at the peak / prime of her life in terms of endurance levels and capability of endurance from a physiological standpoint. She was, and maybe still is, into fitness, posting on a lot of posts on fitness blogs / websites. So, I mean, if she was so tired, why was she meeting up with her partner for a rendezvous instead of having a meeting with her mattress straight to bed? I myself have worked 80-hour work weeks before, week in and week out. And I'm pretty much out of shape myself, but I can still do it. How do you think residents and interns and doctors who have patients' lives in their hands, how are they able to do 24 to 36-hour shifts, continuous shifts, and still function? I did it. They're doing it. A 13-hour shift? A 13-hour shift? Are you freaking kidding me? And you weren't too tired to think and deliberately delete text messages on your phone, which, by the way, that time could have been used instead to have done CPR instead or apply pressure to the wound to stop the bleeding on Mr. Gene that may have saved his life. Oh, another thing that I forgot to mention. Why did you have the sudden urge to shoot a defenseless man? He was eating a bowl of ice cream in quote-unquote your apartment, end quotes, as you claimed, Officer Guyger. Fine, let's just say that he was in your apartment. You literally live 2 minutes away from the police station. Why didn't you close the door, barricade it, right? Draw your gun, call for backup, and warn the so-called intruder of your apartment that you called for backup and not to exit out the apartment or risk getting shot at and or tased? Or do you live in a Scooby-Doo land and maybe thought that Mr. Gene was some sort of pirate ghost and risked the chance of Mr. Gene vanishing in thin air and escaping if you did not shoot him right then and there? But allow me to objectively try to dissect the phone call, okay? Now, just a warning, the phone call can be graphic. Throughout the 5-minute phone call, Guyger curses and cries. But here's a snippet of the beginning of the phone call. This, by the way, is the official audio of some of the 911 call.
Hi, this is off-duty officer. I need EMS. I'm in number, I'm at the...
Do you need police support or just EMS?
Yes, I need both.
Okay, what's the address?
I'm at apartment number 1478. I'm in 1478.
And what's the address there?
It's 1210 South Lamar, 1478, yes. I'm an off-duty officer. I thought it was in my apartment, and I shot a guy thinking that he was, thinking it was my apartment. He
Shot someone?
Yes, I thought it was my apartment. I'm fucked. Oh my God. I'm sorry.
Okay, and where are you at right now?
I'm in, what do you mean? I'm inside the apartment with him. Hey, come on.
What's your name?
I'm Amber Guyger. I need to get me, I'm in...
Okay, we have help on the way.
So right off the bat, my psyche senses are going off. After an accidental shooting, or any traumatic shooting whatsoever of this nature, there usually should be a sense of chaos, anarchy, desperation, confusion, shouting, freaking out, gasping for breath, Lord of the Flies times 10, something along those lines. But just studying her voice, the listener bizarrely gets none of that. Instead, we are subjected to a rather roughly polished and probable rehearsed phone call, interspersed with sprinkled lines that she had to get out and say throughout the phone call for self-preservation purposes. Notice how she set the stage by making sure she introduces herself as an off-duty officer. She more than likely wants to set the narrative and take control of the phone call and have the upper hand in all of this, including over the 911 operator, and shift focus onto her instead of the victim that was shot. In other words, take command and consciously take control and shift the power and energy focus onto her, so that unconsciously the 911 operator will lose focus onto where the power and energy should be really shifted to, which is the poor victim who is bleeding to death at the moment. And mission accomplished. By initially setting that stage that way, at this point, whatever Guyger will say, the operator will subserviently listen and try to console and empathize and meet her needs because of the hierarchical nature of how the system is, valuing and placing familiar people who are higher in position than they are in the same workforce, higher in placing more priority over really the true victims. This is all what's going on unconsciously in the 911 operator's mind. The need to please a person above her or that she is servicing. This is why Jean at this point is unfairly cut off. The 911 operator is unconsciously more focused now on Guyger's needs when it shouldn't be. That's how topographical familial structures are. Families stick together. Sisters stick together. Objectivity is unfairly washed away in this manner and is taken over by subjectivity and bias. From a philosophical sense, constant objectivism and objectivity is constant with no disruptions in a utopia. But since we live closer to a dystopia than a utopia, in my humble opinion, the only constant is the battle between objectivity versus subjectivity, and subjectivity usually wins, as did in this case. And now Amber is the one that's dying, not Jean, and all eyes and attention are on her. And the fact that not once during the entire 5-minute phone call did the operator Amber bring up Jean and the need for CPR proves this very sick point.